Welcome back, everyone, to another exciting episode of Aaron's Opinion, the podcast for blind people, where we speak about critical issues in the blindness community, all other issues from across the universe, galaxy, New Zealand sometimes, but today, definitely Australia. G'day down under there. How are you? Kirby Harris joins us as the next interesting guest, a friend thereof of Mara. Mara Kelland told me to go talk to Kirby Harris. So welcome aboard. Kirby, I understand you've had quite a life journey so far. You do a lot of music. You just do a lot of great stuff. I'll mute my microphone and ask the question I always like to ask. Who is Kirby Harris?
Who am I? That's a really interesting question. I am a musician. I am a podcaster. I have written reviews. I have a music degree. And I also have a guide dog, and I identify as a lesbian, but I don't have any pronouns. And I live life a bit like a mouse and a cat, which means that I like to hibernate. I like to sort of be in my hole a little bit, like a mouse. But I do have the claws of a cat. So if people anger me enough, then the row comes out, and I do get a bit cat-like when I'm angry. But it takes me a lot to get angry. So I'm usually, if I am a cat at all, I'm usually quite a purry, contented cat. With a tendency to be a bit of a mouse. That's how I would describe myself. People can take from that what they will, but yes. It sounds amusing now that I actually think about it, which is why I've named my Tumblr blog, The Blind Cat and the Mouse. The Blind Mouse and the Cat, sorry, because I do seem to sort of have both of those extremes within myself. So yeah, that's me. Hope that made sense, everyone.
It definitely did. Yes, it made sense. Very good. Welcome aboard, as we say. Sure. Okay. Well, it sounds like you're doing a lot. So I was born blind with glaucoma. So Kirby, what is the nature of your blindness? Were you born blind, by the way?
I have ROP, retinopathy of prematurity, which means that you are fed oxygen to survive, and when you are fed too much of it, it speeds up the growth of the blood vessels that connects the eyeball to the retina, from what I understand. And because they grow too fast, they don't have the time to attach themselves properly. They did try to fix both of them when I was a little one. The right-hand one worked, I think that was like 3/4 reattached or a quarter reattached, but the left one was too far curved, so they couldn't attach that at all. Recently, before I got my guide dog, about a year before I got my guide dog actually, that the right-hand retina in my right eye actually fully detached itself. Oh my God, the pain. And it felt really weird too. And then I had to grieve for the sun, because I couldn't see the sun in the same way. Which sounds a funny concept, I guess, grieving for the sun. Well, grieving for the sunlight, yes, I did. But it has actually proven to be a really good thing, actually, because I find that I don't rely so much on light anymore as an orientation and mobility aid, which actually really prepared me really well for learning how to use a guide dog. as a mobility aid, because there's a lot of things that are different from working with a guide dog than working with a cane, which we can get to later. And so not having that light to rely on, it really made me have to tune into everything else, like what's going on at my feet, what's what's really going on around my ears, what's the traffic doing, things like that. I mean, not that I wasn't paying attention to those things, but not having the light to take a lot of my cues from, it meant that I really had to, learn how to focus on those other factors more so. And so, yeah, like, as I said, like there was a bit of grief there, but then, as I say, like it turned out to be a real positive. So, yeah.
Sure, absolutely. It turned out that there was a silver lining in all this, and
Yes.
you having ROP and needing to learn how to use a guide dog. And so let's kind of break all that down. So for someone who doesn't know, right? You're doing great, by the way. For someone who
Oh, thank
doesn't
you.
know, yeah. So what can you tell us about having a guide dog in Australia and getting a guide dog there? What was the process? I'm sure it was quite an experience. Talk about it for a bit.
It was. Look, different schools in Australia, we have three. Um, one of them is national. And when I say three, every state has its own guide dogs at school. And we have Seeing Eye Dogs Australia, which is run by Vision Australia, which is the key sort of corporate organisation here in this country. And there's another school in Queensland called Staple Working Dog and Cane. Now, I got my dog from my local state guide dog school, and it was an interesting experience because I went through a previous experience with the national school. I won't name them because I just did. And I had a sense that I wasn't ready at the time, but the dog obviously really knew that I wasn't ready at the time to have a dog. And so, because dogs know these things. First, I'll start with that. If anyone thinks they're ready, and if they're not, the dog will know. And it was quite traumatic at the time. In some aspects of it, I had to deal a lot with that too whilst I was in my training, because there were things that I remembered from my training from previously. Those bits weren't traumatic. The losing the dog was the traumatic part. But on the positive side of that, it actually really helped me to prepare for my current dog, because it meant that my trainer didn't actually have to show me everything. I mean, he had to like refresh my memory sometimes, because there were little things that I sort of went, oh yeah, that's how you do this again, or little jogs, as it were. But he didn't, like, there was some bits of it that he could just quickly, sort of summarize. And, skipping forward. So I did what they call a pre-skills, which is where your trainer comes in sometimes with a dog and sometimes not. And with the dog, you learn the basic commands, like you sit, you down, you stay, and you learn, your basics of your equipment, so the harness and things like that. And technically you're supposed to have a dog come and stay with you, but my unit at the time didn't have a gate, so I couldn't do that. But as I said, because my previous training had put me instead, I didn't have to necessarily do that part because I had already done it, albeit that was like 10, 12 years before. So, sorry, I just had to stop my jaws from talking. My Mac from talking at me. So technically I didn't actually have to do that. And then at our school, so I got my gate. A bit of hoopla went around that because my housing management, even though they said yes to the dog, they sort of tried not to let me have the gate. But luckily for me, one of my uncles is a fully trained builder, and he came along and put a gate. And bless him, I said, do you want payment or a bottle of your favourite whiskey for that? And because I wanted to pay him back because, he'd taken time out of his busy schedule to come in and, install a gate, which, he had to use a jackhammer and all sorts of things. And he said to me, no, he said, the only payment I want is the smile on your face when you finally get your puppy dog. Well, he certainly got that because he came on the first day that I got Felix, and Felix is my dog's name, and he was smiling. Well, I was smiling, actually. So I'll skip back a little bit. So, yes, so I got the gate. My uncle built that. Then, so what happens with our school is we get a period where we just bond with the dog. So the dog comes to our house. It's already matched. And luckily for me, Felix had been here before because I had a test harness walk with him just to see if we were a match. And luckily it turned out that we were. And so he came here to bond with me for a week. Now, the bonding process for us is that if we have to go somewhere, we leave the dog at home because they don't want the dog to lose its skills. But the dog, the dog doesn't work for that week. So basically, you just get to have fun with the dog. You get to pat your dog, you get to cuddle your dog, you get to play with the dog, and you feed the dog, and the dog, and you sort of you get to know each other. And then you start class the week later. So we did that. We did class. We've had a bit of an interesting journey because during so the intensive part of class was had in a city about an hour's drive from here called Launceston, which meant that myself and my support worker, we went and stayed at a motel whilst I did the training with Felix. And in class, you learn about the guiding commands that you use with your dog, and you go on walks a lot, and you learn about dog theory. So you learn why we train the dogs the way we do, what things they can and can't eat. You learn about dog behavior. You learn about the terminology that we use for obstacle guiding. And then you put your theory into practice during the day. So it's very intense. For those that don't know, I think of it as a university semester on steroids. The only difference between doing guide dog class and a university degree is that the dog's your material. So yeah, and then after that, we then take our dog back into our local area, and we learn our local area with the dog. And I can honestly tell you, that with your dog in your local area, it literally feels like you've gone back to the beginning of class because everything just feels so different with a dog when you're starting. So then you have to learn to rely on the dog's feedback in your area, which has its own challenges. Yeah, Felix and I actually well, yes, he and I lost a bit of confidence actually during class because there was a car that neither he nor I nor my instructor saw until it was right on top of us. And the sudden stop sort of didn't traumatize him necessarily, but it certainly made him, question everything. But luckily for us, we were able to, work through that, and we've been fine ever since. We've just gotten into the golden period now of working together as a guide dog team. In fact, we've probably been in that golden period for about 3 months, I'd say. You sort of have a 3 to 4 year golden period with a dog, because when you first meet them, they're still quite puppy-like, because we get them when they're about 2.5. And so, and of course, they have to, they've got to learn to trust you and you to trust them, and so, it has its teething problems, but it's well worth it in the end. I mean, I can safely say that I honestly prefer a dog to a white cane. The white cane has its uses, but it's never ever been my primary aid. I find it to be clunky and to be really quite slow. Now, I'm not disparaging people who are competent cane users. If people are, that's great. If you prefer that, that's fantastic. It really is. I raise my hats off to you, because in some ways I envy that. But it's just not for me. I tend to not feel very safe with just a white stick in my hand. But with a dog and a harness in my hand, I feel like I can conquer the world, from my hometown and upwards. And I have done that. So yeah, it's, navigating with a guide dog, for me at least, is the best thing that can ever happen. So yeah, hats off to my my wonderfully patient trainer and my equally patient and absolute master at O&M for giving me the courage and the skills. Well, not giving me the courage, but rather helping me to find the courage and helping me to refine my skill set for getting a dog, because I probably wouldn't have applied for one had it not been for the intersections of those two people. So yeah, it's kind of interesting, but yeah, but it is true. I definitely wouldn't have. I wouldn't be where I am now with my big golden boy if it wasn't, as I said, for the intersections of those two people. So yeah, it's been a bit of a ride, I can tell you, but it is one of the best rides. It really is.
You are so right. I had a guide dog as well. I had one from Guiding Eyes for the Blind. She was with me for basically 13 years, and she was incredible, Nani. Um,
Oh,
and she was a sweet little black lab, and she was a character. She traveled all over the world with me, and we touched a lot of hearts in France and Europe and all over the world. And she was a real,
beautiful.
yeah, she was a real character. And she still is in my office now in the form of a picture. So I have her picture of her being silly. She's lying on her back in, in, in our old home where we used to live. She's lying on her back and just being silly. And that's a great picture to remember her by. So yeah,
Yeah.
I completely support guide dogs, provided that the user, like you, Kirby, goes to a reputable and real school and really pays attention and really treats the dog well and loves the dog. And,
Yes.
that's very important to me because there are a lot of debates around the blindness community, and there are a lot of, guide dogs are a major responsibility. That's one thing
They
that I
are.
can say is good and bad. It's a major responsibility at the beginning and at the end. It's a huge responsibility. I do remember, I'll tell you, it's quite endearing. I didn't see, this is the beauty of podcasting. I didn't expect to actually be bringing this up today, but I do remember when Nani passed away at the height of the pandemic. So it was already a pretty depressing time. And,
Oh, I'm sorry to
yeah,
hear that.
yeah,
Must be terrible.
well, yeah, but she was super old. I mean,
Oh, yeah.
people don't last forever, and unfortunately,
No.
her timing just she timed it. She was a character. She timed it perfectly, right at the height of the pandemic.
Oh,
What a
well,
great,
at least she wasn't working.
yeah. Well, that is true, and there have been horror stories over the years, and some things, things can happen to animals all the time, unfortunately. So that's true.
Yes.
She went through her career, she went through retirement, she went through all the phases of her life. But I do remember when she did pass away, and then I realized I woke up the next day, and I wasn't, I was relieved, I was sad, super sad about it, but for a variety of reasons, also in some way relieved, like, oh, because she was elderly and, wasn't
Yeah.
really living a quality of life. So I was like, oh, in my mind, I was thinking, well, that's kind of sad. But then I was thinking, in her mind, she probably thought, oh, thank God. She was
Yes.
more than ready to go. And I was at peace with that. But still, I remember I was living in my own home and I came downstairs and it occurred to me, wait, I have to get a leash. I have to take a dog out. And then it occurred to me, I'm out of dogs. I was like, this is weird. It's like when you get used to walking a dog 4 times a day, like that becomes something that's part of your day. You get used to that. And then
Yes.
when they aren't there anymore, it's like, this is weird. Like, what on earth? So I think that's wonderful. So that's so great that you have a guide dog. I completely support that. So is Felix a golden retriever? What breeds do they use over there in Australia?
He is a purebred golden Labrador.
Mm-hmm.
Um, he he weighs at the moment he weighs 36 kilos. I'm not sure what that is in pounds. I think it might be 73. Hang on a second, I'll
Okay.
just check.
Pretty
I have a Siri
small.
here.
It's like a medium size, not too big, not
Yeah.
too small, just the right size. Yeah.
He's
Mm-hmm.
actually rather big for his breed here. He's very long and lanky.
Zoe has joined the meeting.
He's very long and lanky, is Felix.
Uh-huh.
We'll see if I can get him. Felix! He must be asleep.
The thing is, your camera is kind of dark, so your lights aren't on, so he won't,
Oh,
our buddy there won't be able to it won't come across well over
hold on.
camera.
75%.
Unless he
I
wants to
will
put
fix
his,
that.
75%.
Is that better for everyone?
a little bit. Yeah, sure. Unless he wants to put his face up to the camera, and I think that would be very,
Okay.
very cute if he would like to do that. He's welcome
I'm not
here.
sure. Hold on, I'll just get him.
Yeah.
Felix! Come! Here he is. He's coming. He's a bit sort of, what now? I was sleeping. Come here, mate. Sit. Oh, oh, Oops. I'll just get some light on. Hang on. We'll shed some light on the subject, shall we? Uh, um, hey, mate, come here. Come here. Come here. Sit. Good boy. Um,
Okay, there, we're getting some light here. Okay, all right. Let me see if I can see him. Let's see. Let's see.
come
I
here.
still don't
Look up.
see him.
Can you see him now?
Little tiny bit of him, a little tiny bit of him in the corner. Yeah. Uh-huh. Uh-huh. Yeah, definitely. He's in the corner there. I see him over there. Yeah. Mm-hmm. A little bit. Just not all of them, but just a little. Maybe that's his tail or a foot or
Yep.
uh, oh
He's gone
oh
now.
oh. There he goes. I saw him in the back. He's all camera shy. He didn't want to come on camera. He was all
Nah,
nervous.
he's camera shy.
Oh. Well, I think
He's
that's absolutely wonderful, and that's a really good thing. Have
he's
you
camera shy.
found that's fine, Kirby? Yeah, that's great. Have you found that the Australian public, what is the general feeling towards guide dogs there in Australia? Mm-hmm.
Well, I haven't really experienced, like the bigger mainland cities because
Mm-hmm.
the state where I am is actually an island. So you have to cross what's called the Bass Strait to get to us.
Okay.
Um, I found that um, most of the people in my hometown love him.
Uh-huh.
Sometimes they love him too much, though. They come up and pet him while he's working.
That was always my frustration with my guide dog
Yes,
too. It's always
yes,
hard to balance. It's always hard to educate people about guide dogs and let them have positive interactions and still keep the dog. That's always a frustration. Absolutely.
yes,
Hmm.
yeah, it is. And when I first had him, I didn't find it frustrating at all because, for me, like at the same time, I was able to meet people that way too. So it does have it does also have its positive benefits as well.
Hmm. Hmm.
Um, but yeah, it can also be a little bit annoying, especially when you have to, when your support worker, because we can have support workers here, when your support worker tells someone 3 to 4 times not to pat your dog,
Right. And
and
they do it
then
anyway. They
yeah,
do
and
it.
then you have to, like, I had to yell at this person, and I actually find this comically amusing, but she hasn't spoken to either of us since. Uh,
I was
yeah,
never really sure, and I'm just giving out a very direct opinion. I was never really sure what to do about this problem when I had a guide dog because it was such a repetitive problem and it was always such a present issue that I just
yes,
kind of thought it was just part of having a guide dog is learning how to deal with the public. So
yeah,
I
it
think
is.
I think that's what it is. I think it's just how the public is there and that's how they are here in the States. Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Hmm.
but in so many ways, like it, yeah, as I say, like it's twofold because it does. I mean, I've had both.
Hmm.
It does have the negative experiences of people just being annoying and generally entitled to pet your dog,
And there are
but it
those.
also but it also has the wonderfully positive experience where, and I will tell a story to highlight this. Um, I was walking back. I'd been to one of my local little cafes here, which is a favourite haunt of mine and my dog's, for some breakfast. And I was walking back home, and there was a little boy and her mum. I didn't realise he was a boy at the time, but I could sense that, he was, oh, dog, 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 big, I'm scared. And the mum was sort of saying, oh, yeah, but it's all right, mate, because see how the dog's helping this lovely lady, cross the
Hmm.
road. And I I had to turn around because it was just the most beautiful um, uh, interaction.
Hmm.
And so I did. I turned around and I said to her, I said, I'm so sorry. I said, I couldn't help but to eavesdrop. I said, but I said, and I complimented her on the beauty of her, how she had educated her kid. And so we had a conversation, and so I got Felix to lie down in harness. Now, I don't generally let people pet him in harness, but but once again, a part of me wanted to help, this little boy, not necessarily get over his fear per se, but to have, some sort of, little sort of footnote on it, I guess, to sort of say, hey, not all dogs are scary. And so I got him to lie down, and I sort of said to this little boy, I said, come here, mate. And so he did, and I sort of held his hand. I said, look, I said, if you hold my hand, I said, we can pat Felix's nose together. And we did that, and he was so happy with himself, and the mother was just like, oh, that's so beautiful, thank you. And I'm like, well, just
I really
said, that's all right.
I
I
really
said,
agree with that. I think that is an outstanding example of advocacy. That's more than appropriate. That's exactly what I would have done
Yes.
at the time, or at least
I'm
tried
glad
to.
because I'm pretty sure that some dog handlers, well, if some of them listen, they would be like, why did you do that? Mind you, I did actually share the story with a dog handler group that I'm actually in on WhatsApp, and the responses I got from that, none of them were negative. It was all, oh, that was beautiful, and I'm just like, well,
That was definitely appropriate because you
yeah,
saw that as a moment
I
where
did.
a parent was on purpose doing the right thing and educating their own child. So not
Yes,
only were you trying to educate the child, but you also did the right thing about rewarding the parent for setting a good example for the child.
I did. Yeah.
That's more than okay. I
Oh,
would have
yeah.
done it. I would have done the exact same thing. That was more than
Yes.
okay. That was
I think everyone.
nobody should say anything negative about that. Nobody.
No.
That was more than appropriate.
No,
Absolutely.
I mean,
In
I
that
think,
case. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, I think, there are those circumstances
Mm-hmm.
where,
Mm-hmm.
an in quote rule, if you like,
Right.
should be bent a little bit. And
Mm-hmm.
that for me was just one of them where I was just like, yeah, and
Yeah.
as I say, hopefully, I mean, well, I know that I've made an impact on the mother, but I also hope, that one day the little boy will, when he grows up to be a man, he himself will educate his own children about,
Yeah.
um,
Absolutely.
not just not petting service dogs, um, but the fact that he will, have this little footnote and go, oh yeah, but this lady, like she let me pet her guide dog, and like I think, acts like that, they often tend to come full circle, both to the person for whom you reached out, and for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't had my full circle moment yet, but I probably will. Well, in fact,
Eventually. Yeah.
I definitely will. Yeah. So like that's the thing. And I mean, you know, uh, I certainly didn't do it to get kudos. I just did it because it's like, well, an opportunity here. And it wasn't just for that. It was just because, well, it was actually because I just saw this beautiful thing happening, and I'm like, oh, like I felt inspired too to reach out and help them,
Yeah.
because it was just one of the most beautiful scenes I've ever had happen, in front of me. It was just, and it was really humbling to see.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I think, like an act of humility, can be taken, from that as well. Like, yes, we all have busy lives, but sometimes, the business of the day, should wait, especially if you are in a beautiful moment. And I don't think, especially in Western society, I don't think many of us take the time to actually absorb them. moments of beauty, whether that's, you're walking through nature, or like me, you've had a beautiful moment with a mother educating her kid. I don't think a lot of people actually take the time to absorb, moments of life's, preciousness. I think, and I really do think that, we really need to take the time to absorb those moments, because, they do come back. They come back to repay us. And not to mention the fact that, we also have a beautiful memory, to have, for our lives, even if we never see them again. It's a beautiful memory that you can cherish in a life that can often seem so bleak at times, so yeah, I think, yeah.
Yeah. Really touching. That really says a lot about the character of the whole situation. So yeah, yeah. So, another great way to help people around the world is to create a podcast and to sort of pivot away from, or to pivot around, or to go to another point of discussion. Is that I do recall when I was speaking with Mara, she was telling me how you and Mara, number one, you're a podcaster yourself, right? And then to give a little bit of a spoiler to what will come soon here on Aaron's Opinion, you and Mara also created a podcast together. So why don't you go through your whole, podcast journey, from your own podcast to the one that was created with Mara? Mm-hmm.
Well, the podcast with Mara is actually the podcast that we make together. I tend to be a podcast listener. I'm a huge podcast listener. I follow that many podcasts that I can hardly keep up with them. But yes, so I actually got interested in I've been interested in audio production for a long time, and there was never really anywhere where I could learn it, and until I connected with some friends of mine, and the lady's partner actually taught me about production and how it works. And so they started recording me singing, and I participated in, all the pitch correction and, all the stuff that goes into making a recording sound good. And so I did that for a while, on and off, because they obviously live on the big island and I live here on the small island. So to fly there is not always the cheapest. And then the lady and I wrote a song which we recorded, which I can send you an MP3 attachment of. I do have
I would love that.
It's called There's Work to Be Done, and it's kind of a half serious but sort of slightly, fun song about how, we don't want to do work because we would rather, sit around and, listen to good music and read good books and, but we have to do work. So we had a lot of fun doing that. It was during the 50th anniversary of Woodstock, if I recall, and me and my friend, we were pulling all-nighters because neither she nor I had heard the entire audio of Woodstock, and, well, they've managed to collate what they have, essentially, of the reel-to-reel recordings of the entire 69 Woodstock Festival. And this friend and I are fans. We're a bit geeky, this friend and I. And not only did we listen to the audio, but we loved hearing all of the little, back announcements and all of the little glitches that happen, when these live events and, little things like that, the little, the little glitches. And so we recorded, there's work to be done in that period. And it was just a fun time because we were, high on just, natural feel-good stuff after, absorbing an event that we weren't there for, but we had the honour of, we had the honour of experiencing this thing 50 years later and being transported back there, by the beauty of the radio, even though we weren't there to begin with. But I can tell you, we were a very avid audience, and we still are. The beauty of radio and the internet, guys. So we had the honour of that, and we recorded this work to be done, and then fast forwarding a few years, Mara and I just got chatting because we chat a lot, that's what we do. And we just came up with this idea of doing a podcast. And I like conversation podcasts. I like them. I like the back and forth. I also love, singularly narrated podcasts as well. But doing a singularly narrated podcast for me it's not my thing. I would rather have somebody to bounce ideas off. And so I was listening to another podcast which does exactly that. You don't mind if I promote another podcast on your podcast? It's called Double Tap. Very good. And so I was inspired to not necessarily create a similar podcast, but to have a similar vibe around, the music that Mara and I listen to, which is, kind of folky, classical. She's more the folky, classical type, whereas I'm more the folky, folk rock, jazz, Beatles type. So we have this interesting thing where our tastes coalesce, and then they sort of they go off in different but also similar directions. And so it's really interesting because you have the opinion of, oh, well, I don't necessarily like this is heavy. And I'm sort of going, well, if you don't like it, try to find something that you like. What is it that you like? And so we have this thing where we can sort of banter, and she offers me information that I didn't know about certain artists that I like Jackson Browne, and I can give her information that she doesn't know. And so, we just sort of, the podcast kind of just grew organically from our love of music and our love of talking about it, really. That's sort of how it happened. And we've put out, I think, 5 episodes by now. I'm working on another couple, which I've got to edit, and I've got to put together one. So I'll probably start working on that this afternoon, because the weather's a bit rainy, so I probably won't be taking my dog for a walk as much as I would like to. He doesn't like the rain. The things that Felix doesn't like, let's see, I could probably name them on one hand. Wet grass, rain, wet concrete, and wet anything else. That's probably about the list of things he doesn't really like. Apart from that, he's a very contented dog. So like, as I say, like the podcast, it just kind of grew organically, and that's how we keep it, really just organic. It's basically like, a chat between two friends, and we hope that comes across well within the edited sphere. because, you have, as you know yourself, being a podcaster, you have to edit. Because if you let the natural flow of things happen, you could be chatting for 3 hours, and people probably don't want to. Well, I shouldn't say people don't want to listen, because I did see another podcast, which I don't follow, but I did see one where the conversation went for 3 hours, and I sort of went, I just don't think I can have the attention span for all of that. Not in one go, anyway. But yeah.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Thank you for mentioning Double Tap here at Aaron's Opinion. Hey, we were thinking about getting in touch with them. I would love to have Double Tap come. I know that Mara mentioned them too. Yeah. So have you guys interviewed Double Tap?
No, we haven't. I would like to. But I think for me, I have that slight fan. I have that slight fan fear thing where I'm going, oh my God, I love your show. But what would I say to them?
Well, let's try to get them. Well, let's try to get them on Aaron's Opinion. I would love to interview them. They are so welcome.
Yeah, that would be. Yeah, Stephen Scott and Sean Priest, they host it, and
remind me again, and I'll probably say over on WhatsApp. Remind me on WhatsApp. But so yeah. Let's reconvene that point on our WhatsApp, and if you can remind me on WhatsApp where I can find out their information, I'll definitely look into that. And they sound like excellent people to have in our corner here at Aaron's Opinion. Absolutely.
They are.
That's really well. We'll get them on. We'll see. Well, we'll see. Hopefully, they'll be the next guest. Absolutely. But no, that's so good, and I do hope that you continue your podcast journey and that you embody that speaking,
I do too.
that conversational nature. Yeah, it is good to have a podcast where you have a good back and forth with people. That dynamic can be very good. Yeah, definitely.
Yes. Mm-hmm. It can be, and that's what I like about it. I think it's more the it's the back and forth, and I also, I find that content to be really, really engaging. Because you've got two people sitting either on opposite sides of a channel, in a virtual room, chatting, and it's just a really, really, really great vibe. It really is. So yeah, I thank you for the encouragement. I've just got to get another few eps out, but
well, the number of episodes that you upload should never be something that should intimidate you or make you feel bad.
Right.
We all start out with one download.
We do.
We all start out at number 1. So the fact that you have 5 is a tremendous accomplishment. Actually, most people lose interest after 1. Most people statistically lose interest after 8, usually, and then they lose interest in doing it. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And then we here at Aaron's Opinion, we have a couple hundred episodes, but I've also been doing it for 5 years. So it takes a long time to develop and build enough of a library for people. It definitely does. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it does. And I think that's what I also like about it is, the fact that, the fact that it does take a long time, but then during that time, you also build an audience. One of my other podcasts that I absolutely love, it's called Case File. It's a true crime podcast. No, I'm not a murderer. I just, for some reason, I love consuming dark content. It probably speaks to my nature of hibernation. I don't know, but.
Maybe it speaks to the fact that you're just a dark person. Maybe it's not about hibernation at all.
Yeah, maybe it. Yeah.
Maybe are we putting our finger on something here? So something's starting to get a little smelly here. Something's a little strange.
Yeah.
Things aren't quite adding up. Uh-huh.
Oh yeah. No. No. I'm actually quite a bright person. I don't know. I just have this interest in dark content, but it's really
actually
funny.
So do I. I love dark stuff. I actually love negative content. Actually, I really do. Things that are about tragedy and and
Yes.
different interesting events that have happened in history. Or because, Kirby, I definitely get it, because when you watch something that's really negative at first, but you see that there was a positive resolution to the situation, that is actually very uplifting indeed. Yes, it is.
Yeah, it actually is. It's funny. I remember I was in a choir where we sang happy music. I was in this choir for 10 years, and by the time I left,
Summary. Mail. James.
I
Biden.
I used to go home, and it was funny because I'd get home from rehearsal and I would deliberately put on some country music just to be like, okay, yeah, here's a dose of reality for everyone, because, or for me rather, because I just had to, listen to something that was real, something that not necessarily negative, but real. And, because life's not always happy all the time, and so by the time I left, I actually now don't listen to what I would consider to be happy music at all. And I think it's because I've just developed this kind of interesting aversion to it. It's like, I like happiness, but I also like the fact that in most of the music that I listen to, some of it is happy, but there's this undertone of almost, this won't last in it. Which is, I suppose, what I love about, the kind of thing that I listen to, because it's like, oh, this won't last. And as for true crime, yeah, I love it. Not necessarily like the crimes themselves. Like, I think for me, I'm more interested in what I like to think of as the always unanswerable question, which is, why? I've always been fascinated with questions that don't have an answer. Like, you can explore the psychology of dark people, you can explore their nature. You can explore, why someone killed 15 people, why someone did X, Y, and Z to somebody, and never actually know a conclusive answer. And I think for me, that's what fascinates me most. The fact that people can go to such lengths and justify, acts of brutality to themselves. Oh, well, I love this person, so I killed them. It's like, yeah, but if you love them, like, wouldn't you let them live? I didn't want to divorce my wife, so, so I got a life insurance policy out on her instead, that kind of thing. And it's like, really? Like, for most of us, like, we don't go there. It's like, oh, I no longer like this person. Well, I'll just divorce them. So it always fascinates me, how people can just, jump from, being married to someone and then sort of, plotting their demise, as it were, because they suddenly need money to pay off debts, and, oh, I don't want to divorce you, I want to kill you because I need this money. It's like, to me, like, the whole thing is just mind-boggling. It's like, really? Like, there's a more rational way of doing it. Like, it's called divorce for a start. And secondarily, it's called, somehow pay off your debt without jumping to, the immediate option of, killing somebody just to pay off, some enormous thing which you created. I just find that really, yeah, that's just always fascinated me. Always, ever since I was young. And the first ever books I read, I actually remember them, they were about the Australian gangland wars in Melbourne and Sydney.
Oh boy.
And I read them when I was about 12, 13. And like I learned about, all these people, these people. I've since learned that in jail, some of them were like totally different. But yeah, like you just learn about all these people, and you learn about, like the dark deeds that they do. And then you learn, oh yeah, but XYZ's a mother. And and she's had children, and yet, like all the children have been brought up in this, sort of this crime syndicate. It's like, what? Really? Like, and yet they have these two sides where, I remember reading a story where, one of them got shot whilst they were watching their kid at Auskick, which is an Australian miniature Australian rules football for kids, basically. And so then, obviously the family of that person, sought revenge, not just for the dad, but for the fact that somebody was actually brazen enough to do this in front of his son. And like, so for me, like, even down to the honor code amongst thieves, it's interesting because it's like, I arranged to kill you, but how dare you do that in front of my son? Like, it's so strange.
So you're really, what it all comes down to is you're really mind boggled by society. You're just fascinated by society, how people, it is fascinating. It is deeply fascinating. And you wonder.
Society just fascinates me.
Good. So that's why you should be a great podcaster. Yeah, no, that's why you should keep podcasting, because society is deeply enthralled and involved in the podcast space. Absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is. And it's really, like society just fascinates me. It also appalls me as well. But I think even at some level, I think even the appalling parts are also fascinating.
They are. They are.
Yeah,
I'll tell you. You know what? I'll tell you. I'll tell you a little later on WhatsApp off air. Not because it's a bad thing, but because it's fine that you're name dropping. That's totally fine. I try to not do it. But it's fine. There's a podcast that you will love, and I will absolutely send it to you. Once I send it to you, you'll probably say, "Oh, I listen to them all the time," but I have just the thing for you. You're gonna love it. I have two. Do you like watching YouTube stuff too? Are you active on YouTube?
Yes. Yep.
Oh, I know.
I'm not active on YouTube, but I consume a lot of content.
Right, you watch YouTube videos all the time, right?
Yes.
Oh,
Mr. Fallen is one of my favorites.
Oh, I have just the thing to send you. I'll send you some stuff that's really negative and really dark. I have just the thing for you. Absolutely. Well, that's really incredible. That's really good that you have such a in-depth understanding and such an in-depth fascination of all these things. That's very, very inspirational. And a little dark. It's a little dark, but it's very interesting.
It is.
Yeah.
I think that's why I don't work, because it's not that I don't want to work. It's more just that I have so many facets that I'm interested in that I don't quite know which facet that I really want to go with. So I'm a bit of a dabbler, to be honest.
Right.
I have 4 guitars, which are off camera, but I have 4 guitars sitting right. They're sitting like far to my right, on the other side of the room here, and I play all of them.
So let's talk about music. So you also love music, and
I do. Yes,
that's wonderful. So do you have any music on Spotify?
I actually don't. My music, the recorded stuff that I have is on SoundCloud, but I've been able to find the actual links. So what I'll do is I will drop you in my email. I will drop you the master of this work to be done, which I'll have to consult my other person who wrote it, but I'm pretty sure she'll be more than happy for you to drop it. Provided
that it's MP3, I will easily be able to encapsulate it and to include it in the episode. Absolutely.
Yep. Yeah, no, it is an MP3. I'm pretty sure. I'll double check that for you though. And So yeah, like it's but I have done some recordings. Not of my own stuff, because I actually don't. I have dabbled with songwriting, but I tend more to like writing fiction.
Mm-hmm.
I like to write little, what I call vignettes, because I have a constant story in my head. I'll share with you, but I won't share on air.
So you're also a story. You also do some creative writing, we can say.
Yeah, yes.
Very good.
Because the people in my head won't like it if I share
Okay,
too much
I understand.
about that. But yes, I do write a little bit. I have started writing some fan fiction. It's about my favorite band, who are also, they're not like this in real life, but they're also a murder cult. And it's really dark. They worship Bob Dylan, who is, and I'm painting Bob Dylan sort of in his 60s kind of protesty stage, but he's a bit paranoid. He's a bit, a kind of, like, what are these people doing worshipping me? He's kind of like that. And I'm also painting the band as, well, the band have forgotten how to worship, so they think that they have to, sacrifice fans, so to speak, which is kind of weird. And they have this totally blind cyborg companion named Frankie. That's Frankie, like Frankie Valli is spelled, by the way. And he's got a number of voices in his head. He's got eloquence for reading his email. I don't know why he's got eloquence. He just has. And he has the voice of their god, because their god made Frankie and basically sent Frankie down to essentially know all but see nothing. And he can't talk, so he has two square eyes. He's got little screens for eyes, and if he approves of something, he will flash little smiley faces at the person for whom he's approving, and various things like that. So I have a very active imagination, which is probably why I spend so much time by myself. But yeah. So there's like a few things that are the premise in my fan fiction, but basically, yeah. The band is a murder cult, and they play, they have, little rituals around, the murders. They play Maxwell Silverhammer off Abbey Road before they start. Maxwell Silverhammer is, I read somewhere, someone posted, and I had to listen to this song again to actually figure it out. But Maxwell Silverhammer is and I agreed with this poster once I read the post and I re-listened to it. It is the most cheerful song about a serial killer I've ever heard. It is phenomenally cheerful. So they play that to get themselves in the mood. And so it's quite dark. But I also hope that there's this comedic element in it. Especially where Bob is concerned, because he's just floating up there on his pillow of clouds, and he's just kind of he's got a cigarette and he's kind of looking down at these people, sort of going, oh God, really? Like, how ridiculous is this? And that's basically his role in the story, is just to basically look down and sort of point out how ridiculous it is. And meanwhile, the touring musician / murder cult are looking up at him going, oh my God, we so worship you. And he's just kind of, he's kind of staring down, from his great height. Sort of, he's going, oh, really? Like, this is so ridiculous. Like, and what are you doing? I'm just sitting here like, you guys worship me. So that's his role. His role is basically just to find it all very strange. And sort of, he's a bit paranoid as well because, he's like, well, what's all this strange activity? Why these people worship? Oh, I don't want to be a god anymore, And he sort of just, so he's a bit of a cantankerous god, which is what I wanted. There's probably a bit of Monty Python-esque in there too.
Sure.
I don't know if anyone's watched The Holy Grail, where that scene right near the beginning where God is like, Arthur, what are you doing? And Arthur's like, oh, I'm averting my eyes, oh Lord. And, God from up in heaven goes, well, don't. He's like, I hate those psalms. They're all so depressing. So there is a bit of that in there as well, as that, because, their God is disgruntled. And, so, my God in my fan fiction, he's just kind of floating up in the sky, kind of going, well, laying back, smoking a cigarette, kind of going, well, what the hell? Oh, I think I'll just lay back here and watch all this madness happen.
Yeah. I think your fanfic, your fiction, your fictional vignettes, I think you're obviously a deeply, ridiculously creative and brilliant writer. And I hope that you keep doing that. And I hope you get these writings published, because that's a really, really good outlet for you for sure. Yeah, absolutely.
It is. But unfortunately, I've written a scene of Frankie and now I'm completely blocked. I don't know quite where to take it.
Right. Absolutely.
I'm still kind of.
Well, that's really fascinating. Absolutely, really fascinating. So apart from all of these other interests that you're working on, so where have you traveled to outside of Australia?
Auckland and the US, but the US I did before I had my dog. So I did that in 2014. I was in a gospel choir down here, and we did a cultural exchange, and we got to sing with some proper gospel choirs,
Right.
Potter's House Church in Dallas, and another smaller congregation in LA. And we got to sing with the Tuskegee University Choir in Alabama, which is a beautiful 4-part 20-member choir, but they sing like there's 50 of them. And like the whole trip was I had a ball. I've been wanting to go back to the States ever since, but I've never got there. But yeah, I have been to Auckland twice. And I've travelled to Queensland briefly last year with my dog, and I actually went and saw my favourite band, apart from the Beatles. They're called Tedeschi Trucks Band, by the way. They're a kind of a bluesy, jazzy rock outfit that combine all of those aspects. And yeah, I got to see them live with a couple of friends of mine last year, and it was epic. They're a 12-piece juggernaut.
Well, here's what I can tell you. I think that you've done an incredible job today on the podcast. Really have. What I want to know before we open it up to the audience members who are sitting quietly in the audience from other parts of the world who would want to talk to you, I'm sure you have questions for Aaron Richmond and Aaron's opinion. So what do you really want to know about me? As we like to say in the business, if you could really get under my skin and really make me sweat and ask only one question to see if I'm worth my salt as a podcaster, what do you really want to know about me?
Ooh,
Mm-hmm.
that is a that's a really difficult question. I guess what
Mm-hmm.
I would like to know
Sure.
is how you edit and what do you use to edit? Because obviously you've got both audio and video, which Mara and I don't
Here's
have.
here's the thing. Here's the thing. I don't edit.
Oh,
Everything we're saying is a natural, raw conversation. Why is that, you might ask? Because I want people in the future to be able to look back at this podcast in the future later on and unfold history as we told it. So I want people to feel confident, comfortable, just having a natural conversation like you did, right? We started talking about guide dogs, then your podcast, then true crime, then society, then books, then travel, then this, right? That's the art of a
yeah.
podcast. The art of a podcast is to bring people together from all the countries to have beautiful conversations. And that's why it works. The tool that I would recommend more than any is Zoom, of course. Zoom is providing the audio, and it's also providing the video. So the video is the YouTube, the audio is the Apple podcast, right? So that's how it works. It's a very simple and a very direct way of connecting the entire world.
That's really, really interesting because I mean I think we don't I wouldn't necessarily say what we do is editing. We do obviously put little clips of what we're talking about in the podcast.
Mm-hmm.
But I think see that's the kind of thing that I always subconsciously have wanted to do with our show as well. Like to edit out to edit as little as possible.
Right.
Because if you want to connect, then you have to
Summary.
you have
Male
to
secondarian. Spring train.
excuse me. You have to be organic.
Exactly.
And I think most podcasters that have a conversational podcast would think like that or do that. They edit in such a way that you can't tell that it's been edited if they edit at all. Some do. I'm pretty sure. But yeah, it's really fascinating. Having had this conversation with you. And I thank you very much for
You're
having
so forever welcome. You're forever, as we say here in the Aaron's Opinion family, once you're here, you're forever in the Aaron's Opinion family. It's a global thing with other podcasters and listeners from all the countries that just come together and have these important conversations, right? I mean, we started talking about blindness stuff, but as you noticed, it really wasn't about that. It's about you. It's about your life and about your experience and your interest and things like that. I think it will help us now. I think it will help us now to open the microphone. We have a couple people up there who have a question for you, and then we'll wrap it up with your ways to get in touch and things like that. So one moment here.
Minimize button. Meetingbrook view collapsed.
This is Preston, a fellow podcaster and radio personality here in the States. Preston, it's your second. This is not Kirby. This is our second episode that we're recording today. This is amazing. Preston, go. Your second time in one day on a podcast. Go.
Oh, well.
sometimes.
Okay, sorry, folks. I had to,
There you
I was
go.
not near my mic. Well, Kirby, it's definitely good to meet you. You're definitely doing good work out there, and we appreciate it.
Oh, thanks.
My question for you is, besides all the music and podcasting you enjoy and things like that, is there anything else you want to work on?
Yes, I would like to work on my writing, and I want to get into doing album reviews again. Because I used to write them quite a bit when I was younger.
Right.
And putting them up. As well as just to work on my fiction again. Because once again, I mean, I was very much a writer when I was younger. So yeah, I'm actually working on I've finally got to an age, I think, in my mid-30s where I'm finally starting to be content. And stopping putting pressure on myself.
Oh, yes. Always important.
Because putting pressure on me was not helping me at all do anything. So I'm actually working on that more so at the moment than anything else. Just enjoying enjoying the multiple strands that I have, and and finding the fun again, especially in music, because music has been the one where I've been most hung up on. So for me, it's relearning to find the joy, I think. And that includes finding a joy of just having my dog as an audience.
Oh, yes.
Which
I like
sounds, thank you, which probably sounds a bit strange, but yes, having my guide dog as my singing and playing audience,
Right. That's still clever, though.
Thank you.
Cool. All right. Well, thank you, Preston. Great point, by the way, Preston, as always. Absolutely. All right.
Yes, that was fantastic. Thanks, Preston.
Yeah, no problem.
See here. And now we have Latabo from South Africa.
Well, let me just say, well, it's early morning here, so it's just gone. I can say 12:30. So,
Oh,
the
wow,
question that I
midnight your
had,
time. Wow, you're
yeah,
keen.
it's midnight. Yeah, it's midnight already. So, hey, I'm not sure if I've done like a radio introduction. I don't know, but yeah, I just have a question, which is regarding what you just said about music. So I just want to know, like, which artist did you, I can say, work with, in Australia?
Yeah, I didn't actually name her. She's a friend of mine. Um, uh, her actual, well, her name is Decade and Fry Shorrock. I can,
She's been on the show.
oh, has she?
Of course she has.
Oh, okay. Well, there
We
you
know
go.
her.
I didn't know that. Cool. Okay, that's all right. Well, I'm safe to name drop. I just didn't realize. Yeah. So yeah, I'm not sure whether she told you that we wrote a song together, but we did. And so yeah, that's the lady that I have worked with. She's a great musician. She has helped me a lot. She has inspired me a lot. And She says that of me,
Oh, okay.
which I
Interesting.
find slightly baffling. But anyway, I actually do. I find it baffling because she's one of those people that she can just pick up and play anything, and
Wow.
yeah, like she just is. Whereas me, I have to kind of study and put in effort, but she just doesn't have to. And and yet she goes, yeah, but you're great at doing this. Like, you can do this better than me. I'm like, don't know about that, but anyway. But there you go. So that's the lady that I have worked with. Yeah, and there's work to be done. It's a quirky, light-hearted, but serious at the same time little gem about the fact that sometimes we don't want to work, but we have to. Um,
I have a follow-up question after
Sure.
that, and I'll be exiting. So, okay, so I just want to ask Kirby on
yeah.
this question because yeah, in terms of instruments, like what type of instruments do you play?
I actually play guitar and I sing.
Oh,
Guitar's
okay.
my main instrument. I do have a steel tongue drum and an Appalachian dulcimer and a couple of other things. But the dulcimer confuses the heck out of me because it's a diatonic instrument and a guitar's a chromatic instrument. And so
Ah,
I struggle to get my head around the different sort of ways in which the instruments work and where their frets are. Hence why I don't actually play my dulcimer, because it's not that I don't want to play it, it's more just that I don't get how this thing works. Like, what? Like, where's the other frets and where's the grid and where's the other strings? Because the dulcimer's got 3 strings, a course of 1 and a course of 2. And yeah, I like many musicians, including my guitar teacher, just find the whole different tuning systems and the different design of instruments and the way that the strings work on the fretboards quite baffling. My guitar teacher finds the mandolin exactly the same as I do the dulcimer, because the mandolin is tuned in the same as the violin. And when you work with a guitar, mostly, and a bass, like she does, it's very excuse my language, but it's a total head fuck, or it can be, because you're dealing with different you're dealing with a totally different set of circumstances upon an instrument, which which is weird, especially, as I say, like if you're dealing with, if you spend most of your time, like I do, dealing with a chromatic instrument, which you
mm,
know very well, and then you pick up, something else, which you don't know as well, and then you discover that it's it might feel a little bit similar to a guitar, like a dulcimer does. Mine looks a bit like a boat, but instead of the boat having, it's a teardrop shaped dulcimer, mine, but it looks a bit like a boat, except that the deck is on both sides of the pilot plank. So you can, so
my
you could,
God.
getting back into the darkness again. Yeah, you can walk your fingers off the pirate plank on my dulcimer.
Mm-hmm.
Mm,
Well,
Um,
I think I got to say, I think that's a beautiful and a very artistic way to end. I think you're a very artistic person, and you've really
Thank
illustrated
you.
your life really well. And thank you to Latabo and Preston for giving the questions
It's
and all of that. Yeah, really paints a great picture of
our
all the
pleasure.
different projects you're working on and things like that. So Kirby, we're going to have a lot more great experiences with you here in the Aaron's Opinion family for sure. So Kirby, as we
We
walk
are.
to the end of a beautiful and dark and fascinating episode, of course, how can somebody get in touch with Kirby if they would like to do so? How can you be reached?
Well, I am on Facebook. If you search for my name, my name is Kirby Harris. That's Kirby space HARRIS. If you find that, I am on Facebook and Instagram. I was on X, but I left X, also known as Twitter, a long time ago. I, however, mostly hang out on Mastodon. If anyone here is on Mastodon, you can find me at blindmouse88 at dragonscave.space, where I mostly hang out. And it's not because I have anything against Facebook. It's just purely because if I'm going to post anywhere, it is on Mastodon. I use Facebook for keeping track of the people that I don't have on Mastodon, which is a lot. And I don't post on Instagram mostly because I'm not very good at taking pictures. Pictures are not my thing. So yeah, I mostly hang out on Mastodon if I'm going to post.
right.
But you can feel free to message me on Messenger if you, if you want to get in touch with me. You can feel free to do that. But yeah, because as I said earlier, I'm more the kind of person that will share in a group. I don't put a lot of content out. Because a lot of the stuff I do, I tend to kind of do it for me.
That's very understandable. And then you do it for yourself, and if you like it, you hope that the rest of the world kind of absorbs it as it goes along. No, I totally understand.
Yes.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Hence why I just don't. I don't post. And plus two, I mean, I don't even really think about posting. It's not it's not a natural thing for me to do. So like even on Mastodon, I post when I need to, and then I don't post for a while, and then I suddenly pop back up, and everyone's like, "Oh, where have you been?" "Oh, just been a mouse for a while,
I think that's a beautiful
Hanging out.
way to end. So people can click the link in the description for further information. Kirby Harris, you are forever welcome here in the Aaron's Opinion family. And that was just a wonderful.
I will join. I need to actually listen to some episodes. I'm sorry.
That's all right.
There's not enough time in the day.
We'll
mate.
catch
It
up.
really isn't.
We'll catch up on WhatsApp a little later. Okay.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
But that would be perfect. But until then, Kirby Harris, thank you for joining us. Thank you to Latabo and
you,
Preston
Aaron.
for the great questions.
No problem.
And thank
Aaron.
you for a great episode as always, guys. All right, we'll be back soon. And until then, we say help one person today, help 1 million people tomorrow.